In 1984, Father Thomas Keating, who was a very well-known Christian monk, Catholic monk, was here at a Christian Buddhist conference in Europa, and I was hosting him. And he talked about how he felt that really that peace was the responsibility of faith leaders, and that he was going to start a private retreat of representatives of different faiths to sort of work on the issues of being a leader and how to live in a diverse world and how to overcome whatever challenges there were to talking to each other genuinely so that people could band together and try to impact the aggression that was worldwide. And I was part of that group and have been. It's still very active. And we published a book 2 years ago, but I think Father Thomas is a major role model for me in current times. My best example of dialogue is this interfaith dialogue I've been involved in for 22 years. And, you know, it started amazingly where what we were doing was trading dogmatic perspectives. You know, I believe this, you believe that. Hey, there's no way. You know, we can't even have a conversation. And over not a fairly short period of time, and I think it had to do with Father Thomas's skill and his impatience with this thing, we really just began to speak to each other and to be able to sort of step into the shoes of someone else and see what inspired them and how their worldview served them. And you begin to soften. Those years of dialogue and really beginning to appreciate points of view that were incredibly different was very, very helpful. I started something called, and I'm now co-director of something called the Buddhist Coalition for Bodhisattva Activity, which means service activity. And after finding out that there were about 30 Buddhist communities in Boulder County of different sizes, I thought that if we got together, we could really help do service in the county and really be seen as part of the social fabric. So that's one thing I started. And then as we were working on restoring the soul, we had no intention of ever starting another nonprofit because Boulder really proliferates. But someone called our attention to the fact that there was one area that wasn't being served, which is offenders leaving the jail and trying to get back into society. And that although there were many resources, putting them together was a really uphill battle. And so we started something called Focus, which is a mentoring program for people transitioning both from jail and from the probation department back into society. And we train mentors, which we generally, they're volunteers, and they come from mainly congregations of all sorts, but from businesses and associations and things like that. My teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, of course, is the star. His compassion for human beings that come in all sorts of forms with all kinds of neurosis and quirks, his compassion was boundless. And although I never felt that I could reach anywhere near his caring for individuals, that it really inspired me. Trungpa Rinpoche actually walked out of Tibet into India over the Himalayas. And the passes are at 18 feet and the snow is 6 feet high and stuff like that. And I said, how did you do that? I mean, when I saw the Himalayas, and I saw that when we look at the top of our mountains, we look this way, and then when you look at the Himalayas, you look that way, I was very impressed at what sort of an ordeal that must have been. And I said, how did you do it? And he said, one step at a time. And that's been a guideline for me, a major guideline. You know, that I feel that's how you have to relate to challenges.